You want us to what? Admiral Thompson stared at the alien diplomat, his weathered face a mix of disbelief and barely contained amusement. The Zekathari ambassador, a towering crystalline being whose translucent form shimmered with internal light patterns expressing confusion, repeated its request. We require humanity's assistance in our war against the Nexus Dominion. Our intelligence suggests your species possesses unique qualities that could prove decisive. Thompson leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his silver-streaked hair. The stark utilitarian lines of the International Space Force headquarters conference room seemed to emphasize the absurdity of the moment. Let me get this straight. You've been fighting this war for what, 3 centuries? 342 standard cycles. The ambassador corrected, its light patterns shifting to a more formal configuration. Right. And now you want humanity, the species that still argues about whether pineapple belongs on pizza, to help end your intergalactic conflict? Thompson couldn't help but grin. The same humanity that half the galactic community dismissed as primitive deathworlders just a decade ago? The ambassador's crystalline form pulsed with what Thompson had learned to recognize as embarrassment. Our initial assessment of your species was perhaps hasty. Perhaps hasty, Thompson echoed, shaking his head. That's diplomatic speak for we really stepped in it, isn't it? A soft chime interrupted their conversation as Thompson's AI assistant materialized in holographic form beside him. Admiral, I've completed the preliminary analysis of the Zekathari combat data. You might want to see this. The holographic display sprang to life, filling the air between them with a cascade of battle statistics, tactical analyses, and strategic projections. Thompson's grin slowly faded as he absorbed the information, replaced by an expression of growing incredulity. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. Your entire military doctrine is based on perfect geometric formations? Everything's symmetrical? The ambassador's light patterns shifted to what Thompson recognized as their equivalent of a defensive posture. The sacred geometries have guided our tactical philosophy for millennia. They are the pinnacle of martial efficiency. Thompson pinched the bridge of his nose. And let me guess, the Nexus Dominion uses the same approach? Naturally. All civilized species understand the fundamental superiority of geometric warfare. The Admiral was silent for a long moment, studying the battle formations displayed before him. Finally, he tapped his comm unit. Get me General Rodriguez and Admiral Yuki, and somebody find me Lieutenant Commander O'Malley. You know, the one who got suspended last month for that bar fight on Mars where she took down 6 Marines using nothing but a pool cue and creative application of orbital mechanics? The ambassador's crystalline form rippled with uncertainty. I don't understand. What relevance does this incident have to our request? Thompson's grin returned, wider than ever. Ambassador, has anyone ever introduced your civilization to the concept of asymmetric warfare? Or, as we like to call it back home, fighting dirty? The next 4 hours were a blur of activity as humanity's military leadership assembled. The conference room filled with holographic displays showing increasingly chaotic battle simulations as O'Malley, fresh from her suspension and still sporting a black eye, enthusiastically demonstrated the fundamental flaws in geometric warfare doctrine. See the problem with perfect formations, she explained, using her coffee mug to demonstrate a flanking maneuver that made the ambassador's crystalline form vibrate with horror. Is that they're predictable. And predictable means vulnerable. Now, if we take a page from the ancient art of barroom brawling. General Rodriguez, a stern-faced woman who'd made her reputation leading guerrilla operations against pirate bases in the Kuiper Belt, nodded along. We could adapt the Ender's Game approach. The enemy's gate is down, and all that. Completely redefine the spatial reference frame mid-battle. Exactly, O'Malley beamed. And if we combine that with the Crazy Ivan maneuver from the Hunt for Red October, I must protest. The ambassador's form was practically strobing with distress. These suggestions violate every principle of civilized combat. The sacred geometries are about to get a crash course in human innovation. Thompson interrupted. Ambassador, your people asked for our help. This is what you're getting. Now, about these Nexus Dominion ships. How do they handle gravitic distortions? The answer, as it turned out, was poorly. Very poorly indeed. The 5th and final hour of humanity's involvement in the 3-century war began with what would later be described in official reports as Operation Barroom Blitz. Unofficial accounts preferred to call it the Great Geometric Breakdown, or simply That time humanity taught ancient spacefaring civilizations how to fight dirty. A fleet of human ships, led by the newly promoted Captain O'Malley, approached the main Nexus Dominion battle formation in what appeared to be a completely random and disorganized manner. The Dominion commanders, utterly baffled by the lack of geometric precision, attempted to adjust their formations to account for what they assumed must be some hidden pattern. There was no pattern. O'Malley's flagship, the appropriately named HSS Chaos Theory, performed a series of maneuvers that violated not only the sacred geometries, but several apparently fundamental laws of physics. The rest of the human fleet followed suit, each ship moving in ways that made the Dominion's tactical computers crash as they attempted to predict trajectories using geometric principles. "You can't calculate where we're going if we don't know where we're going," O'Malley announced cheerfully as she ordered her helm officer to execute what she called the Drunken Master Special, a spiraling corkscrew maneuver that somehow incorporated elements of Irish step dancing. The Dominion fleet's response was to attempt to maintain their perfect geometric formations while trying to target the erratically moving human ships. This proved about as effective as trying to play chess with someone who's instead playing high-stakes poker while simultaneously juggling chainsaws. The coup de grace came when O'Malley deployed what she'd dubbed the Pool Hall Physics Gambit, using carefully calculated gravitational slingshots around nearby astronomical bodies to send her ships pinballing through the Dominion formation. The perfect geometric patterns shattered as ships were forced to break formation or risk collision. In the chaos that followed, the human fleet demonstrated another concept entirely foreign to both the Xecthari and the Dominion: improvisation. Each captain adapted to the rapidly changing situation, using tactics that ranged from inspired to probably illegal in several star systems. The Xecthari ambassador, watching from the safety of Thompson's flagship, had long since given up trying to understand the human approach to warfare. Its crystalline form had settled into a kind of resigned shimmer as it watched centuries of military doctrine being cheerfully ignored, violated, or outright mocked. "This isn't warfare," it muttered. This is humanity," Thompson replied with a satisfied smile. "We specialize in thinking outside the box. Actually, we prefer to forget the box exists entirely, and maybe use it as an improvised weapon." The war that had raged for 3 centuries ended not with a geometric formation of ships exchanging fire in precise patterns, but with a Nexus Dominion admiral sending a surrender message that consisted largely of punctuation marks and what appeared to be the spacefaring equivalent of keyboard smashing. In the aftermath, as the various alien civilizations struggled to process exactly what had happened, humanity was approached with numerous requests to provide military training. Thompson delegated this responsibility to O'Malley, a decision that would later be described as either brilliant or catastrophic, depending on who you asked. O'Malley's first lecture to a joint Xecthari Dominion military academy began with her walking into the hall, looking at the perfectly geometric seating arrangement and immediately ordering everyone to rearrange the chairs into what she called organized chaos. "Lesson 1, she announced to the bewildered alien officers. "Sometimes the best strategy is to be so unpredictable that you surprise even yourself. Also, we're going to need some pool cues and a lot of coffee." The ambassador, watching from the back of the hall, turned to Thompson. "Admiral, I must ask, is your entire species like this?" Thompson considered the question as he watched O'Malley demonstrate what she called tactical applications of barroom physics, using a holographic pool table and some very creative interpretations of momentum conservation. "Like this? No, not exactly," he replied finally. "Some of us are much, much worse." The ambassador's crystalline form flickered in what might have been a sigh. "The galaxy will never be the same, will it?" "Nope," Thompson agreed cheerfully. "Welcome to humanity's version of civilization. We recommend wearing a helmet." And so began a new era in galactic military history, one that would be marked by the gradual abandonment of the sacred geometries in favor of what became known as the human chaos doctrine. Training academies across the galaxy began incorporating such revolutionary concepts as winging it, making it up as you go along, and sometimes the best battle plan is no plan at all. The Xecthari eventually adapted, though they never quite managed to fully embrace the human approach to combat. They did, however, develop a deep appreciation for pool, which became an unexpected but vital part of their military training programs. As for O'Malley, she went on to write a controversial but wildly popular military manual titled The Art of War, Barfight Edition, which became required reading at every major military academy in known space. The chapter on using non-geometric formation flying to induce motion sickness in geometric-thinking enemy tactical officers was particularly well received. Thompson, for his part, found himself increasingly called upon to explain humanity to the rest of the galaxy. He developed a standard response to the inevitable questions about human military doctrine. The universe is chaos, he would say, and humanity's greatest strength is that we've never pretended otherwise. We just learned to surf the chaos while everyone else was trying to organize it into neat little boxes. Then he would usually add, also never challenge a human to a bar fight. Trust me on this one. The galaxy never quite recovered from humanity's introduction to interstellar warfare, but most species agreed that it was probably for the best. After all, it's hard to maintain centuries-long wars when one side might suddenly decide to throw out the entire rulebook and win using tactics inspired by bar fights and pool hall physics. And if the occasional alien military observer was horrified by humanity's approach to combat doctrine, well, as O'Malley liked to say, sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make the other guy too confused to keep fighting. It was hard to argue with results, even if those results violated every known principle of geometric warfare and possibly several laws of physics. In the end, humanity's 5-hour solution to a 3-century war became a legendary tale told in military academies across the galaxy, usually accompanied by the warning, remember, just because something has always been done one way doesn't mean a human won't show up and solve it another way, probably involving pool cues. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, Captain O'Malley continued teaching alien military officers the fine art of tactical unpredictability, one bar fight simulation at a time. The sacred geometries were never quite the same again. Neither was the galaxy. But then again, that's what tends to happen when humanity gets involved. 6 months later. And that's why we never ever approach a human vessel in perfect geometric formation. The Zekathari instructor's crystalline form pulsed with emphasis as they addressed a class of junior officers. Unless, of course, you enjoy having your tactical computers reduced to calculating the trajectory of your own embarrassment. In the back of the classroom, Admiral Thompson suppressed a smile as he watched the next generation of alien military officers frantically taking notes. The holoprojector displayed footage from what had become known as the O'Malley Incident, now required viewing at every military academy in known space. Question: a young Dominion officer raised their primary appendage. Is it true that Captain O'Malley once defeated an entire pirate fleet using only gravitational slingshots and a recording of something called Irish drinking songs? The instructor's crystalline structure flickered in what Thompson had learned to recognize as the alien equivalent of a weary sigh. That is classified information. Which means yes, Thompson muttered under his breath, remembering that particular after-action report. The pirates had been so confused by the human ships performing what appeared to be a coordinated dance routine to Whiskey in the Jar that they'd forgotten to maintain their defensive positions. The aftermath of humanity's introduction to galactic warfare had led to some interesting developments. The International Space Force now ran an exchange program with both the Zekathari and the former Dominion forces. It was going about as well as could be expected when trying to teach chaos theory to species that had based their entire military doctrine on perfect geometric patterns. Thompson's comm unit chimed softly. "Admiral, you might want to head to the observation deck," his AI assistant announced. "Captain O'Malley is conducting another practical demonstration." He found her on the station's observation deck, surrounded by a mix of human and alien officers. The massive viewport showed a field of practice drones arranged in various formations, while O'Malley, still sporting her signature unruly red hair, and now wearing a jacket with Chaos Theory Instructor emblazoned on the back, gestured enthusiastically with a pool cue. "The key to understanding human tactical doctrine," she was saying, "is to first understand that the universe is fundamentally unpredictable. You can't control chaos, but you can learn to dance with it." A Dominion officer raised their hand. "But what about the sacred geometries? 3 centuries of tactical analysis got thrown out the window by one barroom brawl technique," O'Malley finished with a grin. "Speaking of which, who's up for a practical demonstration of using asteroids as impromptu bowling pins?" Thompson cleared his throat. "Captain, please tell me you're not planning to recreate the series incident." "Of course not, sir. This is completely different. We're using smaller asteroids this time." The gathered alien officers watched this exchange with a mixture of horror and fascination. One of the Zekathari students, their crystalline form barely containing their excitement, raised an appendage. "Is it true that humans sometimes plan military operations based on something called action movies?" O'Malley's eyes lit up. "Funny you should ask. Has anyone here seen Die Hard? Captain, Thompson warned, but it was too late. O'Malley was already queuing up what she called her Introduction to Human Cinema Tactical Analysis presentation. The last time she'd given this lecture, 3 Dominion tactical officers had required crystalline structure recalibration after watching her explain why The Fast and the Furious contained valid space combat maneuvers. Now pay attention to this scene, O'Malley was saying. The holographic display showing a classic Earth action sequence. Notice how the protagonist uses environmental factors to their advantage? We can apply the same principle to space combat by remembering that we have a budget, Thompson interrupted, and that some of us would like to maintain our diplomatic relations with the mining guild after last month's incident. That was a perfectly valid tactical application of asteroid mining equipment. You used a mining laser to draw a smiley face on the side of a Dominion ceremonial fortress. It was a tactical smiley face, sir. The alien officers were furiously taking notes. Thompson realized with a sinking feeling that somewhere, somehow, this would probably end up in the next edition of the new Galactic Military Doctrine Handbook. Later that day, in what had become known as O'Malley's Bar, despite being the station's official officers' lounge, Thompson found himself explaining human nature to yet another group of bewildered alien diplomats. You have to understand, he said, watching O'Malley demonstrate zero-gravity pool shots to an enthusiastic audience of alien officers. Humans don't just think outside the box. We tend to forget the box exists, then repurpose it as improvised tactical equipment. But how do you plan for that? A Zekthari diplomat asked, their crystalline form pulsing with genuine curiosity. How do you develop doctrine around complete chaos? Thompson suggested. We don't. That's the point. The moment you try to systematize human tactical doctrine, you've already missed the point. On the other side of the lounge, O'Malley had somehow turned a simple pool lesson into a lecture on the tactical applications of kinetic energy weapons. The alien officers were completely engrossed, especially when she started explaining how the principles of bank shots could be applied to orbital bombardment. Sir, his AI assistant materialized beside him. The Galactic Council is requesting your presence at their next session. Apparently they want to discuss the unprecedented success of the human military training program. Thompson raised an eyebrow. Unprecedented success? The number of ongoing conflicts in known space has dropped by 73% since we introduced our training methods. Apparently, nobody wants to risk fighting an enemy who might respond with tactics inspired by professional wrestling and bar fight physics. Peace through controlled chaos, Thompson mused. Not exactly what we planned, but I'll take it. Speaking of chaos, the AI added, Captain O'Malley has just submitted a proposal for what she's calling Operation Movie Night. She wants to show Independence Day to the entire Galactic Defense Force. Thompson pinched the bridge of his nose. Tell her absolutely not. The last thing we need is... Too late, sir. The Zekthari High Command has already approved it. They're calling it Essential Cultural Exchange. Across the lounge, O'Malley had moved on to explaining the tactical applications of something she called the Die Hard theorem. The alien officers were hanging on her every word, their various appendages and crystalline structures vibrating with excitement. You know, Thompson said to no one in particular, when we first made contact with alien life, this is not how I imagined things would go. His AI assistant's holographic form flickered in what might have been amusement. No one ever expects humanity, sir. That's our greatest strength. That, and our ability to turn bar fights into military doctrine, Thompson agreed, watching as O'Malley began setting up what she called a tactical demonstration, using pool balls, empty glasses, and what appeared to be a makeshift model of a solar system. The galaxy was never going to be the same. But then again, that's what happens when you introduce an entire civilization to the concept of winging it, after 3 centuries of geometric warfare. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the ghost of Sun Tzu was probably having a very interesting conversation with the spirit of every pool hall brawler who'd ever turned chaos into victory. The art of war had never been quite so entertaining. 1 year later. I swear on my crystalline matrix, if one more human tells me to get creative with battle tactics, I'm going to deliberately misalign my geometric structure, muttered First Officer Katal of the Zekthari Defense Force as they watched the latest training exercise unfold. The viewing chamber of the Galactic Defense Academy's primary training facility was packed with observers from a dozen species, all watching as Captain O'Malley's latest class demonstrated what she called tactical improvisation. The fact that the demonstration involved converting cargo containers into makeshift pinball bumpers was, apparently, entirely normal by human standards. Admiral Thompson, standing beside Catal, couldn't help but smile. You have to admit, it's effective. Effective. Catal's crystalline form flickered with a mix of disbelief and reluctant admiration. They're using gravitational slingshots to play pinball with training drones. This violates at least 17 principles of the sacred geometries. Only 17? O'Malley must be having an off day. The training exercise below had devolved into what O'Malley proudly called controlled chaos. A fleet of training vessels, crewed by a mix of human and alien cadets, was performing maneuvers that made traditional tactical computers spark in protest. The human crews had taken to calling it the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fighters, much to the confusion of their alien counterparts. "Look at that formation," Catal exclaimed, their crystalline structure vibrating with what might have been horror or excitement. It was getting harder to tell these days. It's beautiful, Thompson suggested. Horrifying, Catal corrected. But there was a note of fascination in their harmonic resonance. They're using the principles from that Earth entertainment. What did O'Malley call it? Breakdancing, Thompson supplied helpfully. She's been incorporating a lot of Earth dance moves into space combat tactics lately. Says it helps pilots think four-dimensionally. Below, a squadron of fighters had just completed what O'Malley had dubbed the Cosmic Moonwalk, a maneuver that somehow combined retrograde burns with lateral drift in a way that made traditional targeting systems give up and go home. The alien observers were frantically taking notes, their various appendages and sensory organs struggling to keep up with the display. Thompson's comm unit chimed. "Admiral," his AI assistant materialized, looking somewhat frazzled, a feat for an artificial intelligence. "We have a situation in the simulator room. Captain O'Malley is attempting to teach the advanced class something called the electric slide assault pattern." "That doesn't sound too bad," Thompson began. "She's using actual electricity, sir, and slides." Thompson pinched the bridge of his nose. "Of course she is." The aftermath of humanity's introduction to galactic warfare had led to some interesting developments in military training methodologies. The traditional Galactic Defense Academy curriculum now included such courses as Introduction to Human Pop Culture Tactics, Non-Geometric Warfare 101, and the increasingly popular Applied Chaos Theory and Barfight Physics. O'Malley's latest contribution to the curriculum, a course titled Tactical Applications of Earth Entertainment, had become surprisingly influential. The sight of Zekthari crystalline beings attempting to incorporate breakdancing moves into their combat maneuvers was something Thompson would never quite get used to. "Admiral," Catal said suddenly, their crystalline form pulsing with what Thompson had learned to recognize as their equivalent of a thoughtful frown. "I've been analyzing the human approach to combat, and I've noticed something disturbing." "Only one thing?" "You're not just chaotic," Catal continued, ignoring the quip. "There's a pattern to your chaos. It's like we're actually really good at being bad at being predictable?" Thompson suggested. "Exactly. It's as if you've turned unpredictability into an art form. A terrifying, physics-defying art form, but an art form nonetheless." Thompson grinned. "Welcome to humanity, Catal. We specialize in turning confusion into strategy." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion from the simulation room. The door burst open, and a stream of alien cadets poured out, their various appendages and crystalline structures vibrating with excitement. Behind them, O'Malley emerged, still wielding what appeared to be a modified pool cue. "Sir," she called out, spotting Thompson, "you won't believe what we just discovered. Turns out you can apply the principles of Earth billiards to quantum torpedo trajectories." "Captain," Thompson said wearily, "please tell me you haven't been teaching alien cadets to play pool with antimatter weapons." "Of course not, sir." O'Malley looked offended. "We're using regular matter torpedoes. Antimatter pool is next semester's advanced course." Catal's crystalline form made a sound that might have been a whimper. The revolution in galactic military doctrine had led to some unexpected diplomatic developments as well. The annual Galactic Defense Conference, once a staid affair focused on geometric formation updates and tactical symmetry analyses, had become something more akin to what humans would recognize as a combination of a scientific conference and an entertainment convention. This year's conference featured presentations with titles like The Tactical Applications of Human Professional Wrestling Moves in Zero-G Combat, and Why Everything You Know About Space Combat is Wrong, A Human Perspective. The latter had caused 3 different species to request emergency philosophical counseling. The thing is, O'Malley was explaining to a rapt audience in the main conference hall, traditional space combat doctrine assumes that everyone is trying to win in the same way. But humans? We don't just think outside the box. We steal the box, turn it into an improvised tactical device, and then use it to confuse the enemy while we do something completely unexpected. A Dominion tactical officer raised their primary appendage. But how do you plan for that kind of combat doctrine? That's the neat part, O'Malley grinned. You don't. The moment you try to plan chaos, you've already lost the plot. You have to embrace the uncertainty, dance with the randomness, and maybe occasionally use a black hole as an impromptu slingshot. She's not joking about the black hole thing, Thompson muttered to Catal. Last month's advanced tactical exercise. Well, let's just say we're still getting complaint forms from the Physics Compliance Department. The integration of human combat doctrine into galactic military strategy had produced some interesting linguistic developments as well. The Galactic Standard Dictionary had recently been updated to include terms like pulling an O'Malley, defined as succeeding through methods so unconventional that they technically shouldn't work, and human-style tactics, defined as approaches to combat that make geometric warfare theorists cry. As Thompson watched O'Malley demonstrate what she called a tactical ballet maneuver using holographic ships and what appeared to be a choreographed sequence inspired by Swan Lake, he couldn't help but reflect on how far they'd come. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted when humanity first stepped onto the interstellar stage. You know what the really interesting thing is? He said to Catal. We're actually getting better at this. Humans, I mean. Now that we don't have to pretend to follow conventional tactical doctrine, we're coming up with even more creative ways to break the rules of warfare. Catal's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been resignation. The sacred geometries were supposed to be eternal, unchanging. Nothing's unchanging, Thompson replied, except maybe humanity's ability to take any situation and make it weird. In the background, O'Malley had moved on to explaining something she called the tactical applications of Earth sports, complete with a holographic demonstration of how to use asteroid fields as a cosmic version of a soccer field. The alien officers were simultaneously horrified and fascinated, their various sensory organs fixed on the display as she explained how the principles of Earth's most popular sports could be applied to space combat.
Next week, she announced cheerfully, we'll be covering hockey tactics in 0G. Remember to bring your helmet. We're going to get practical. Thompson made a mental note to update the station's insurance policy.
Again, the galaxy would never be the same, but then again, that was probably for the best. After all, a predictable universe was a boring universe, and if there was one thing humanity excelled at, it was making things interesting. Even if interesting sometimes meant teaching ancient crystalline beings how to breakdance in zero gravity. 18 months later, the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was silent, its crystalline walls reflecting the bewildered expressions of a dozen different species representatives. Admiral Thompson stood at the podium, trying very hard to maintain a properly serious expression as he delivered his annual report on the Human Integration Initiative. And in conclusion, he said, consulting his notes, the adoption of human tactical doctrine has resulted in a 97% reduction in large-scale military conflicts, primarily because nobody wants to risk facing an opponent who might respond with what Captain O'Malley calls the tactical application of reality television concepts. A Dominion representative raised their primary appendage. Could you clarify what you mean by reality television concepts? I could, Thompson replied. But I've been advised by our legal department that explaining O'Malley's Survivor Asteroid Belt Edition training program might violate several intergalactic treaties. The Zekthari High Commissioner's crystalline form pulsed with what had become known throughout the galaxy as the human-induced headache pattern. Admiral, while we cannot deny the effectiveness of your methods, there are concerns about their impact on traditional military culture. You mean the fact that 3 different species have officially added yeet to their tactical vocabularies? Among other things, the Commissioner admitted. Just last week, a Zekthari battle group successfully repelled pirates using something they called the tactical dab. Thompson managed to keep a straight face, but it was a close thing. The footage from that particular encounter had gone viral across the galactic information networks. The sight of crystalline beings performing synchronized Earth dance moves while executing perfect flanking maneuvers was something that would never get old. His comm unit chimed. Admiral, his AI assistant materialized, looking distinctly harried. We have a situation at the Academy. Captain O'Malley is attempting to introduce the advanced tactical class to something called parkour. In zero gravity. In zero gravity, with asteroids. Thompson sighed. Of course she is. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into a mixture of horrified murmurs and excited chittering. The concept of parkour had already caused enough controversy when it was just being taught on solid ground. Adding zero gravity and asteroids to the mix was entirely on brand for O'Malley, but it wasn't going to make Thompson's diplomatic job any easier. If I may, a new voice cut through the chaos. Everyone turned to see Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, one of O'Malley's former students and now an instructor at the Academy, standing at the secondary podium. I'd like to present some data on the effectiveness of our new training methods. The holographic display sprang to life, showing a series of battle simulations. Traditional geometric formations dissolved into what appeared to be choreographed chaos, with ships moving in patterns that made traditional tactical computers throw up their metaphorical hands in despair. As you can see, Rodriguez continued, by incorporating elements of human culture, everything from dance to sports to, yes, reality television, we've created combat doctrine that's literally impossible to predict. The enemy can't anticipate your moves if you're basing them on Earth phenomena they've never heard of. Is that a ship performing what appears to be a cartwheel? The Dominion representative asked, their optical sensors narrowing in confusion. That's actually a modified breakdancing move, Rodriguez explained. Captain O'Malley calls it the cosmic headspin. It's surprisingly effective for evading targeting systems. The presentation continued, showing increasingly improbable tactical maneuvers that somehow managed to be both utterly ridiculous and devastatingly effective. The alien representatives watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as Rodriguez explained concepts like tactical flash mobs and combat choreography. Meanwhile, across the station in what had officially been renamed O'Malley's School of Unconventional Warfare, though most students called it the Chaos Academy, a new generation of military officers was learning to think like humans, or at least they were trying to. The key to understanding human tactical doctrine, O'Malley was explaining to her latest class, is to first understand that humans have spent their entire history turning random things into weapons. We're the species that looked at a pool cue and thought, you know what? This could revolutionize space combat. Her audience, a mix of various alien species including several crystalline beings who had literally rearranged their geometric structure to better understand human thinking, took furious notes. Today's lesson, she continued, pulling up a holographic display, is about something we call improvised tactical assets. Or as we like to say back on Earth, anything can be a weapon if you're creative enough. One of the Zekthari students raised an appendage. Is it true that you once defeated a pirate fleet using only a cargo container full of rubber ducks? That's classified information, O'Malley replied with a grin that suggested it was absolutely true. But speaking of unconventional tactics, who's ready to learn about the military applications of Earth's flash mob phenomenon? The resulting demonstration would later be described in official reports as a synchronized chaos event, and in unofficial reports as what happens when you let humans teach aliens about viral dance trends. Back in the council chamber, Thompson was finishing his presentation. The point is, he said, addressing the still stunned representatives, humanity's contribution to galactic military doctrine isn't just about winning conflicts. It's about making warfare so unpredictable that everyone decides it's easier to just get along. By teaching our forces to dance? The Zekthari High Commissioner's tone suggested they were still trying to process this concept. Among other things, Thompson nodded. Think about it. How can you maintain a serious military conflict when your opponent might respond with tactics inspired by cat videos? Cat videos? That's next semester's advanced course, Thompson explained. Right after we cover the tactical applications of human internet memes. The council chamber erupted into another round of confused discussion. In the background, Thompson's AI assistant materialized again. Sir, it said, Captain O'Malley has just submitted her proposal for next year's curriculum. She wants to introduce something called tactical TikTok. Thompson considered this for a moment. You know what? Approve it. At this point, we might as well lean into the chaos. The AI's holographic form flickered with what might have been amusement. Should I also approve her request to teach advanced meme warfare? Why not? It can't be any more disturbing than the time she taught the Dominion fleet to do the Macarena during combat maneuvers. And so, as the galaxy continued to adapt to humanity's unique approach to warfare, new legends were born. Tales of battles won through flash mobs, of pirates defeated by synchronized dance moves, of entire fleets rendered ineffective by tactics so bizarre they defied classification. The sacred geometries were now just one approach among many, taking their place alongside such innovative concepts as the tactical conga line and combat karaoke. The galaxy had learned to embrace the chaos, or at least to accept that resistance was futile when humanity decided to get creative. As O'Malley liked to say, in space, no one can hear you meme. The galaxy would never be the same, but then again, that was kind of the point. The end.